Welcome to this HFS Videocast. I'm Mark Reed Edwards, Marketing Leader at HFS. Today, we talk with two of the analysts behind the HFS Top 10 on Insurance Services for 2022, which we just released. Joining me are Research Leader Reetika Fleming and Practice Leader Sam Duncan. Reetika and Sam, it's good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us, Mark.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so Reetika, let me start with you. What's at the core of the HFS Top 10 focused on insurance services?
Yeah, sure. So this is a refresh of our insurance services top 10. And what's really exciting this time around is we've added a new dimension in which, we look at service providers in the space. So, we were always interested in execution capabilities, which is, how are you providing industry specific talent at scale for carriers around the globe, how your business is growing in different insurance subsectors, across P&C, life, reinsurance, broker segments definitely growing, recently. We're always interested in knowing about innovation then, right? Like beyond consistent service delivery, providing talent. How are you really helping carriers change the game, right? Catch up to InsurTech and figure out what that means for them. Develop a broad kind of partnership ecosystem so that you're not a one-stop shop and you can really hook into different parts of the tech landscape, services landscape for insurance. How do you have a roadmap that starts to chart out how you can be the best services partner for your carrier clients, because the role of a service provider is also changing, so we're always curious about that. In the last few years, we've added voice of the customer as an elevated scoring criteria for our top 10s, which I love that dimension, because it really says you can have, say, the biggest workforce, you can have the most innovative vision and roadmap, but at the end of the day, how are your clients really experiencing day-to-day kind of operational as well as strategic engagement with you as a service provider. So that's great. And then we've added one office alignment as the last scoring dimension for this insurance top 10, which is really starting to take a look at how are service providers better aligning internally, so that they're not just going to carriers with a BPO proposition or IT services or all things digital, right? How are they contextualizing their solutions that go across these capabilities into something that actually addresses, business challenges for carriers? So that's one dimension of it. And then how do you break down the silos of front, middle, and back office? And they really exist in this industry, right? So how are service providers helping that change for carriers?
So for a relatively staid and perceived as staid market, technology has really made insurance pretty dynamic, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's there's a huge push right now there's been a push over the last decade, 2 decades, to try to get to something called straight through processing, which is, how do you streamline a transaction so that it's almost touchless, right? It's a great concept, very few examples of folks who are already there. But now I think with the different kind of technology levers you can use and stitch together, technology is no longer the limitation. It's your ability to really think through and reimagine how a process should run. How in different types of insurance products, right? Some of them are pretty simple, and you can really build a good customer experience around it. But for more complex products, commercial insurance, et cetera, That's where there's a big push right now to try to figure out how can technology really help streamline the underwriting or the claims piece of some of these complex products. So it's already changed the game for, I would say, volume driven sort of lines of business and products, and it's starting to do that with others.
Yeah, so let me pose this question to both of you, and you can split it up how you see fit. Can you tell me what you saw in the providers you studied, and also, what are enterprises looking for?
Sam, you want to take the start?
I think when you look at the insurance industry, one of the first things I think of is it is quite a harsh regulatory landscape. And what that means for many carriers is they do still have quite a fragmented technology landscape. They haven't quite caught up yet. You hear a lot of sort of paper-based operations, sort of slow manual processes. And not only does that kind of really, really negatively impact the customer experience, which is so important these days, but it also drives up costs for these providers as well, which obviously long run hits the insurers through their premiums. So it's a pretty negative thing. But I think as we're emerging sort of through the pandemic more and more, we're seeing digital transformation isn't really an option anymore. There's wealth of insurtechs arriving, and if the established players don't do it, they will, and they're going to catch themselves in quite a lot of trouble. So the providers in particular, it's about helping these carriers do exactly that. It's about modernizing their tech landscape, moving themselves, sort of slaying their legacy dragons, as it were. And a lot of it's about getting into the cloud, but not just that. If you think of insurance, it's data rich industry. There's buckets and tons of data, probably more so than any other industry. So a lot of the carriers, and I think the ones that are doing particularly well at the moment, are the ones that are thinking about exactly how they can help these insurers use their data. And sort of many of them are doing it in different ways, and many of them are sort of coming with different products, different offerings to use their data. But I think the big thing at the moment is just harnessing it to its absolute capability and driving customer experiencing, improving efficiencies that way. But I think one of the other key things we're seeing at the moment from providers, sort of from this report in particular, is in specializing in insurance alone just isn't enough anymore. They're becoming a lot more vertically focused. So I think sort of if you are sort of an IT and business service provider and you have an insurance business, it's too broad. What does that really mean? So they have to delve into sort of life and annuities, property and casualties, and even a little bit deeper than that. So if you look at Emphasis, they're investing really, really heavily in their retirement capabilities. And it's providers that are doing that are going to do particularly well, I think, in this report and as we sort of move through the next couple of years.
And on the enterprise side, Reetika, what are they looking for?
Yeah. So I would say speed to market. It's just absolute top of mind for many of the carriers that we have been speaking to over the last few months. It's really smarter underwriting, risk assessment, so that to a large extent you're just able to prioritize what applications your underwriters really should focus on, right? Improve profitability there. Like I said before, as make it as straight through a process as you can to get business in through the door. And then I think this focus on distribution overall, it's always been important, but I think in the pandemic economy, it's become the number one imperative, right? Needing to be more digital, focus on new business operations, get decisions in the fastest way possible. There's a lot of interest in figuring out new channels that might be appropriate to start to push out products in, and then how do you push out those products and create new ones in months, not years. So that's always been important. Improve customer, and however you define your customer, right? It could be an agent, broker, and improving those experiences, and at the same time improving employee experiences too, right? We're hearing about at an operational level, the talent shortage, great resignation has definitely hit the insurance industry. And so, how do you make a workday easier and a better experience for an employee, hoping to retain them, so that, say, you're doing less remediation work, right? Less data kind of recon work, and focusing more on just more value-added activities. So I think that's what enterprises are looking for in this industry. It's always been about insurtech as well. How do you now integrate it into the core of an insurance carrier's operations and way of working, rather than, there's our insurtech experiment at the fringes, or in a greenfield project, right? So I think that's some of the big initiatives you're hearing about.
Yep. And I've said this on numerous top 10 interviews. Talent is the common denominator through everything we're doing. And it's an urgent need in every market segment, and insurance is not unique in that.
Yeah. So if I was to summarize everything I just said, what are enterprises looking for in this industry? Simplicity.
Yeah, it's great. So Sam, this is where the rubber meets the road on the top 10. Can you give me an overview of the top providers, who they are, and where they excel?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you look at the top of the pile for this top 10, I think you see EY. When you think of EY, you probably immediately think that they've got pretty good capabilities across consulting, managed services, finance, and you'd absolutely be right. And all of that does obviously hugely impact their insurance practice, but that's kind of not the key really. Their key differentiator at the minute is their digital platform is Nexus. And it's really forward thinking, to be honest. It's something quite different. It's something we're not seeing from a lot of other providers. And I think, and Reetika, you'll keep me honest, but I think they summarized it quite well to us with their key goal of sort of helping insurers launch new products, business lines, and even brands in weeks, months, as opposed to years. So that's a pretty, harping onto Reetika's point of simplicity, it doesn't get much better than that. If you can move that quickly with speed to market, that's a pretty great differentiator for a provider. So I think that's EY did particularly well in this report. And then I think in second place was EXL. Again, EXL, they've done a great job of sort of productizing and releasing a set of different products. I think you looked at Extracto, Excelia, that sort of span across their business, but they're doing a great job helping carriers specifically harness their data with things like that. But they've also got insurance specific offerings such as their Life Pro. So that combined with their deep insurance capabilities, they've done insurance for a long time. And I think you think of EXL, you think of maybe two main things, and that's insurance and analytics. So when they club the both together, it just sort of come together as quite a harmonious offering and quite a sort of united front. And I think that really did resonate with insurance clients for them. So that helped them do pretty well. And in third place, TCS. The size and scale of TCS just dwarfs so many other people. They bring such a global talent at scale that really helps them win big deals, as we've seen, and I think we've written about it countless times at HFS before. But with the size and scale that they invest quite heavily in sort of key industries, whether that's banking, financial services, and one of them is insurance. They've invested heavily in that. They have sort of a catalogue of insurance specific offerings, and they complement that with their co-innovation network. So they're quite innovative offerings. And again, that just really resonates well in the market. It's helping them win these big deals. And it's one of the reasons they did particularly well in the report.
That's a great summary. This is, a subject we could talk about for countless hours, but this, I think, was a really good overview of this top 10, which you can now download at hfsresearch.com, along with all of our research and a growing library of videocasts just like this one. Thanks, Reetika and Sam. Really appreciate you joining me, and we'll see you on the next HFS Videocast.